Hello, welcome to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money, pretty much everything in the sun relates to you having a healthier, happier relationship with money. My name is Steve Sexton. I want to thank you for joining us today. You know what? One of the big things today is this. We're finding now that, kids are going back to school, all that kind of stuff. But according to the Surgeon General report, there's a large amount of parents that are way stressed out and finding it difficult to function. We have Gretchen Salyer. She's the CEO and founder of childcare. She's going to here to discuss the report, what the issues are, what you can do about it, the whole shot. On top of that, I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest things that's occurring is some of these investment schemes. Almost $61 billion was taken from people last year due to cryptocurrency scams. And on top of that, romance scams and other type of scams. We're going to talk about those so you can get the information, you could share it with your friends and families and make sure it never happens to you. So with that, stick with us. We're going to be right back with some more Saving with Steve. Hello, folks. I want to welcome Gretchen Salyer. She's the founder and CEO of childcare Company. It's a platform connecting families who need childcare with trusted moms and recommended sitters who can care for their kids. Now, this is a big thing. There's a gigantic report that just came out from the Surgeon General, Parents Under Pressure. We're going to unpack that report so you understand all that's going on. And the reason why I think this is really important is there's a lot of parents out there who are working, doing other things. And I always equate this to something that my wife experienced when our kids were little. She went to those moms groups, and one of the moms was freaking out because her kid was eating crayons. And she said, you know what? I can't believe it. My kids are going to go crazy. They're eating crayons. And one goes, oh, no big deal. My kids do that too. She found out they were normal. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where like, hey, we've got to know there's other people who are going through this, and there's solutions that the federal government's offering and other things like that. So we just want to share that with everybody. We also want to share what childcare does for people, for moms and all that kind of stuff to release that pressure. So that's what we're here today to talk about. So Gretchen, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Me too. You know what, folks, just so you know, we're going to unpack the Surgeon General's report. Gretchen's team's been so grateful to provide that report for us. We're going to put it up on the website at the end. So when you read through it, you might be going, oh my God, that's what I'm dealing with. So you know what? I want to make sure it's there for you, even though we're going to be talking for about 40 minutes or so. So with that, let's just start talking and unpacking that report, because you know what? The first thing I was looking at when I went into this report was that um, almost 41% of parents in the U.S. are stressed, and they find it difficult to function. And that's a big thing nowadays, especially when you have dual income homes and the whole shot. So, could you kind of unpack what's going on with all those stressors and things like that that people are dealing with, or like just kind of set that up for everybody so they understand?
Yeah, so this is a really important report. It's really a warning that the Surgeon General put out last week. And I think you can summarize it by just saying the parents are not okay. There's a lot of data in the report, which we can definitely talk through, but it really comes down to a couple of things. There's these feelings of isolation, which have really gotten worse as parents are replacing in-person interactions with virtual interactions. There's the youth mental health crisis, which is still being unpacked in terms of what that means, how many children that's impacting, which is really stressing parents out. And then, of course, there's the financial stress. So we have a childcare crisis that has been around for a long time now. Over half of American families who need access to childcare don't have that access to childcare. We're seeing prices skyrocket in terms of childcare, but overall, prices are skyrocketing such that most families need to have two incomes in order to be financially stable. And so the math just never works. You're trying to have two parents with two jobs, but you don't have childcare. And so parents are trying to do that trade-off. Can they even make enough now in their job to cover the cost of childcare? And the stress is palpable. And I think that's what we're seeing in this report.
Now, the other thing is, what about the stress that a child um, deals with?
Mhm.
when it comes to their mental health and, dealing with the growing up issues, the adolescent issues, and so on.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, right? Because as you have parents who are stressed out and feel like they're unable to be financially secure, that stress is felt in the home. And so children are growing up now with that stress, with that uncertainty, about that stability, about, are they going to be able to make rent the next month? That is not lost on children. And then I think beyond that, we've seen a lot of research come out recently around the impacts of social media on kids and just this feeling of being left out. Girls in particular, really seeing escalated rates of depression associated with social media, but that's also impacting the parents. So imagine if you are looking, you're scrolling on Instagram in the evening and you're seeing all of your contacts living their best lives, right? Which is what people project on Instagram or on incredible vacations, and you're on your 15th movie night on the couch. Just that comparison really does start to impact parents, it's impacting children. And so it's creating kind of a worsening problem that I hope this warning is calling attention to so that we can start to talk about what do we do about this?
Yeah, I was just thinking the keeping up with the Joneses. It's so
Yes.
tough to do that on Facebook and stuff like that because all you're really seeing is somebody's trip that they might take, and they might take one a year, but you see them do it and you're not doing it. Uh, and um, and then everybody's trying to, like you said, live their best life. So they're smiling and everything, going out somewhere, and it might be the one time a month they do it, but you're not doing it.
Yeah. Well, and
So
keeping up with the Joneses, right? It used to just be you were aware of what your neighbors were doing because you would talk to your neighbors, you would see them. Now with social media, you're aware of what basically everyone you know is doing. Oh, but really,
Mhm.
just to your point, a snippet of what they're actually doing. They've probably also had 15 nights on the couch watching a movie, but they just happen to be in Greece, And I think the impact of that is really real.
Yeah, that on top of that, you know what? Some people make themselves up, dress themselves up really, really, really well, so they're really, really, really cool and all that stuff. But they're in the same, economic thing. It's just using Facebook to make them feel better and seem better in front of all their friends and so on. And there's always somebody that doesn't know how to do that.
Mhm.
And I can see how that stress would come. And if your mom or dad are not there to handle it or help you handle it or work you through it, it's pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah, the other piece that the Surgeon General calls out is the impact of technology on this feeling of isolation. So I think it's 65% of parents, 77% of single parents report feeling very lonely and very isolated. And a lot of that is being tied back to kind of from the pandemic, in-person interactions being fully replaced in some cases with virtual interactions. So you used to, in order to connect with your neighbors or with moms, you would find a moms group or maybe a community group that you could volunteer with. Even the school pickup line. Right now, we drive and drop our kids off. That's a COVID phenomenon. You used to have to walk in and at least get, those little just but
Hmm.
regular in-person interactions. And now it's virtual. There's virtual mom groups. There's, the let's just use WhatsApp or let's just do a Zoom call instead of an in-person meeting. And we're human beings. We're meant to be in community and be around each other and, practice those social emotional skills. And that hasn't been happening now, for 3 or 4 years. And we're seeing the trend of loneliness follow that, just continue to get worse and worse and worse. So I think that is going to be tricky to pull people out of because the reason we've continued to do the virtual groups is because it's easier,
Hmm.
especially as parents. You're trying to juggle your kids' schedules, you're trying to juggle, just the family calendar, making time to actually set up a lunch date or go for a walk with a friend actually feels really hard. And it feels like you can never find time to fit that in. I think that's going to be tricky to see, what recommendations come out to try to get people out of their homes and back into in real life community with others.
So, okay, no, I actually see that and I agree with that, especially when it comes to the time demands. But could we talk a little bit more about, what we understand inflation's going up, things are costing more. So, you know what, people take on second jobs. What are other, some of the other things that people are experiencing from a financial standpoint, with, dealing with, after school care or stuff like that?
Yeah, well, the cost of childcare has risen 26% in the past decade, and wage inflation has not kept up with that. So childcare is feeling more and more expensive to families because it is more and more
Mhm.
expensive. And I mean, in some states, we're seeing the cost of childcare for your child under 5 is the same as a college tuition. But the big difference is even if you're the most financially responsible parent in the world, you can plan for a college tuition. You can set up a 529. You can make sure you're putting away a little bit at a time so that when the time comes, you're ready. But you just had this child. So you
Mhm.
may not be in the financial position. You may not have saved for the cost of a college tuition when your child is 2. And the impact of that often results in typically the mom, it's not always, but it's typically the mom stepping out of the workforce, not taking the promotion, taking the part-time job because she's trying to balance that childcare responsibility, not using too much childcare, maybe not using any childcare at all, and just the stretch of trying to figure out how to raise your children and earn an income feels really impossible. That's also in juxtaposition to now parents are expected to spend more time with their kids than ever before. And that goes for moms and dads. We've seen dramatic increases in the actual amount of time and the expected amount of time that parents are supposed to spend with their kids, which didn't happen in previous generations. You weren't expected to get on the floor for 2 hours and play Monopoly every day, or whatever it may be.
Uh-huh.
But it's real, and parents are feeling that, and
Hmm.
they can't make sense of it, right? They can't figure out how to do it because it's in a lot of cases impossible.
So Gretchen, hold that thought right there. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back with more Gretchen Saylor and Steve, Saving with Steve. That was perfect.
It's
I'm
okay.
going to I'm going to unpack that a little bit more on what's expected because those expectations also create stress. So so let's reset that. Perfect. Um, here we go. All right, here we go. Oh, Cameron, we're going to move into segment number 2 here with Gretchen Saylor. So here we go. Hey, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show. I truly thank you and appreciate you for letting your friends and family associates know about the show. We're actually over 750,000 listeners, and that's worldwide. I want to thank you so much. All the replays are available at www.savingwithsteve.us. If you're enjoying the stories of helpful information and insight on Saving with Steve, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Never miss a show. Check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, E360 TV, and the Las Vegas TV network. All these networks are dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirit, and live a life of personal financial freedom. Hey, you can also follow us on Saving with Steve Sexton and get into the Insiders Club. You get all the guest gifts, replays, all that kind of stuff. You get the videos. In fact, when you go there, you're going to be able to get the Surgeon General's report and read it for yourself. So, you know what? Let's talk some more with Gretchen here. Gretchen, one of the things that you were talking about is these expectations that society has put on parents to play with the kids. Now, don't get me wrong. When our kids were young, when I got home, it was usually late and they were asleep because they were little. And, my whole, family life with my kids was usually the weekends and sometimes a little bit during the day. But then on top of that, they're having expectations for moms that they spend time with those kids. And could you unpack that so everybody can understand these expectations that people, so to speak, have? And how are those expectations created in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question that I think we're going to need experts, social experts, to unpack where these expectations came from. My hypothesis would be it does go back to the social media point that we were talking about before. There's just so much information sharing, but it's just the most perfect lens of information that's being shared on social media that it does put pressure on parents to feel like they need to create those same experiences on a regular basis. Again, even though you're just seeing maybe
Mhm.
what is one day of someone's life on social media. But the stress of it is very real. And mom's expectations, well, first of all, more mothers are working full time than ever before. So that alone is a change. It's very different if your career is a homemaker or being a stay-at-home mom, then you may have more time, you may spend more time with your kids, but even their expectations have changed dramatically, by the way. My mom, is an amazing mom, and she did not work outside the home, but there were a lot of times I don't know what she was doing. She definitely was not orchestrating little craft activities for us every day, but that is what's expected now. And I think a lot of that is the influencer culture that moms are.
Mhm.
And then for the majority of moms who are working outside the home, working full time, they're trying to also live up to that expectation of creating these very meaningful interactions with their kids, which is all good. It's all very positive. But just the volume that mothers are feeling like they're expected to do, in addition to excel in their careers, it's very stressful. And that's why the Surgeon General is saying the parents are not okay.
Mhm.
There's a very staggering statistic in the report with the increase in time that fathers are spending with their kids. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's almost 150% increase in the number of hours that a dad is now expected to and spending with his children. I have to imagine a lot of this is coming out of the pandemic and more jobs being remote and the cost of childcare increasing. So the dynamics here are you can't figure out how to come right side up economically paying for childcare and working because maybe your salary is not covering the cost of childcare, especially if you have more than one child. So you and your partner may both be able to work from home or have hybrid schedules. So we're seeing a lot of families trying to do this very complicated trade-off of working and taking care of the kids at the same time. And that juggle I think, is new, especially for dads, but also for moms to try to juggle this all. And I think probably creates a lot of stress in the household, but maybe also in the marriage, right? If you're trying to literally trade off all the time, both parents are now running full speed without really any time to take care of themselves or recover or even take care of their relationships.
Yeah, I was just thinking back when I was little. I'm one of five, so
Oh, wow.
my dad worked. Was what dad worked all the time, and mom took care of kids. But even during the day, my mom was like, "Hey, you're all taking a nap," and so did she. She just wanted downtime, you
Good
know.
for her. That's what we should be doing. More parents should be napping.
Oh yeah, I thought and it was funny because like that's one of the reasons why we went to bed early so they can get some rest.
Right.
And
Yes.
and I was thinking even when I was working, we only had two kids and my wife stayed at home. But even then, you know what? When I came home, she just needed a break. And the reality is when you have two families and they're working 8, 10 hours a day or more trying to make ends meet and cover everything and all that kind of stuff, where do you get the break? You just don't.
Yeah.
Or you switch off, or you know what? So what? So I'm just thinking, wow, how do people do it nowadays? It's tough. And I have two kids in their mid-20s. They're not married yet, but you know what? They're going to have to deal with that one way or another.
Yeah. Well, and
So.
it starts from moment one. We're still one of the only countries that doesn't have paid family medical leave, our national policy. And
Mhm.
some states have different policies that are more or less helpful. I think hopefully this Surgeon General's report continues some momentum. We've seen some early momentum in the system from both political parties on this. So
Mhm.
the Biden campaign, they pushed for a 12-week paid family medical leave. It was not passed through Congress. Even in 2017, the Trump presidency, he also pushed for a 12-week national family medical leave. That was really important to his daughter, Ivanka, I believe. He was not able to get it through Congress. I believe he was able to get it for federal workers. So our government employees now have that. It would be great to extend that to every citizen. But that not having that initial even financial support when as a mother you cannot work physically, your body is recovering from giving birth to a child. It just sets everybody up on a back foot. Now, I don't think we can rely on the government for taking care of this issue. Relying on the government for solutions, I think, can be risky, unpredictable, and very slow. So we're also hoping that the Surgeon General's warning really inspires the private sector to do more and come up with more innovative solutions so that we can start to support our families and reverse some of these trends.
I totally agree with you. I don't think people should be hoping that the federal government's going to solve this problem. I do hope the private sector does, although that's a dollars and cents issue, and you probably experienced similar things when you worked at Intuit. So, and when I worked for big companies, they kind of had the same thing. Your spouse gets to leave because she had the baby, but you
Yeah.
don't. So go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we've seen a lot of progress even since I had my first child in terms of at least larger companies now doing a paternity leave so that
Mhm.
men and women can get some time off, and, support each other and kind of take care of the child in those first few precious months. But those benefits are reserved to really those who are fortunate enough to have those jobs, which is not the majority of Americans who are really relying on some sort of disability just so they can get back on their feet.
Yeah, there's basically the companies that are in competition for the top tier employees. They've got to have those benefits to retain them. So that's where we obviously see those.
Exactly.
We're not really seeing them at small, you're not going to see them at a fast food place. You're not going to see them. I don't even think you see them in school districts because they can't afford to.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It's, especially with teachers, they could probably use it because of, they get kids all day.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I know. Exactly. And they're on the feet, right? Like jobs where you have to be on your feet all day in those first couple weeks. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is. It definitely is. Although I don't have any experience there, I do know some people
You've
who,
witnessed it. Yeah.
well, you know what? I'm a little bit older, so I've grown up with people who provided services like hair salon services and stuff like that, and they kind of worked to 8.5 weeks of pregnancy, and they're up there with a big belly on their feet and trying to back aching and everything.
Mhm.
So you know what? I if they had some of that support, life would be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, and that's
so
that's my point, is it's not that we need to rely on government funding or government policy. Again, I think the private sector needs to play a bigger role here, but at least getting us up to date with where the rest of the world is in terms of, that initial support right after birth. I am optimistic actually that we're going to make progress there in the near term. And I think this Surgeon General warnings hopefully is going to fuel the momentum that we're already seeing.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, folks, we're going to take a quick break and start talking about what you can do and services like what June Care is, where you get tax incentives and so on to do that. So, stick with us. We're going to be right back with more Saving with Steve. Perfect. Okay, Cameron, we just finished segment 2. Perfect. Okay, that was perfect. You've done this a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I love podcasts. They're fun. They're
Well,
much they're much more fun than like the quick local news where you get to say like two sentences.
oh yeah, I've done local news, geez, since 2007.
Oh yeah,
And so you know what? If they are cutting the segment short, you get a few seconds, but if they want to extend it, you get questions out of the blue, the whole shot. So,
totally.
and the funny thing is, my best one is I did a thing on government shutdown a long time ago, and Fox News out here in San Diego said, "Hey, we want to meet you somewhere." And we actually did it off a freeway off ramp
Oh
where
my
I
God.
had blue jeans on and a button down. And we did this report, showed on the 11 o'clock news, and actually showed like 5 million times before the morning. In fact, my uncle in Indiana goes, my whole board saw you on the news.
So cool.
And I was like, all right, I'm somebody.
So cool.
So it's just really weird with those things because you never know if it's going to be the thing that hits or the thing that just gets you some decent publicity. So, all
Yeah.
right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to start talking about the solutions and things like that now. So here we go. Cameron, oh, Cameron, we're in the segment 3 with Gretchen, And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show. I just again want to thank you for tuning in and supporting us and sharing us with your friends and families. If you're looking for guest gifts, replays, you can go to our website at www.savingwithsteve.us. And again, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Never miss a show. Check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, and E360 TV, as well as Las Vegas TV Network. You know what? All these networks, they're dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, just like we're doing today, uplift your spirit and live a life of personal and financial freedom. With that, we have Gretchen Salyer. She's the CEO and founder of childcare. We've been talking about the Surgeon General's report. We've been talking about all the stresses, all the things that people are dealing with. So let's start talking about some solutions here. So now I'd like to have you just walk through some of the solutions, some of the incentives that the government provide from a tax-related standpoint, so somebody can realize they might have a little bit more money because they're not giving it to the government, but they're giving it so they could use it towards that, so they can carve out, maybe not work as hard to do those things. So if you could share that with us, Gretchen, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, of course. And again, I was talking in the last segment about how the Surgeon General's warning is getting a lot of attention. We are so excited about that, working in the childcare industry ourselves. It's not new news to us, but it's nice that it's becoming news for everybody else. But the Surgeon General, at the end of the day, he can't do anything. He just is hoping to inspire the government and inspire the private sector to really implement solutions that are going to help address the warnings and the concerns that are in his report. So for the government standpoint, I mentioned, we have seen momentum. We've seen pushes from both parties to try to get some sort of national paid family medical leave. I am optimistic, regardless of who wins this in November, that we're going to see more movement there. And so that's really exciting. We are also seeing both candidates now have proposals for childcare tax credits. So Kamala Harris, I believe, wants to reinstate the COVID childcare tax credit, which was $3,600 per child. And then also more for infants, I think 6,000 for infants. And then the Trump campaign, at least JD Vance has come out and said that they want to do even more. So their childcare tax credit might even be higher. And all of that is good news for parents, because again, when you have your child and because of the rising childcare costs, you haven't necessarily saved everything you need to save in order to really pay for childcare, that at the cost of childcare, which we're just seeing increase dramatically. Beyond that, we are hoping that there's going to be just more innovation in terms of increasing the supply of childcare. So I mentioned the cost of childcare has gone up 26% in the past decade. And that's really a supply demand issue at the end of the day. So 51% of American households live in what are called childcare deserts. That's where there are 3 children for every 1 seat of childcare available. So your listeners are probably familiar with economics. This is simple, right? When there's less supply and more demand, prices go up. And that's what we're seeing. So opportunities to figure out, how do we increase the supply, increase the number of childcare seats that are available for families, I think is going to be critical to figuring out how to bring some prices down, as well as make more childcare available to the families who need it.
Do you have an idea? I know you said it's 26% more, but when we're talking numbers from somebody who has somebody in childcare 5 days a week, it might be a 5 or 6 year old that's in childcare before they get into first grade. What would that actually cost somebody in dollars and cents? Now, I understand it's different in California and other states, but where would that range be?
Yeah, it's truly all over the map. It really depends on where you live. I've said we've seen some childcare costs go upwards of $10,000-$11,000 a year, which starts to get into college tuition territory. Overall, it depends on the childcare you're looking for as well, by the way. So 10 to 11,000 a month might be for a daycare where you're going to have higher provider to
Did you
child.
just say $10,000 to $11,000 a month?
Sorry, a year. Thank you
I
for
was like,
correcting. It is not that much.
there's a stressor.
Yes, 10 to 11,000 dollars a year would be for a daycare. If you want someone in your home, just focus on your own kids, it can rise upward of $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And that
Okay.
is money that parents are paying out of their post-tax income.
Hmm.
So they're often having to make significantly more than that amount each year to be able to afford childcare for one child at a time.
Hmm. It's almost like we got to set up a profession for childcare so you can flood the workforce with more workers,
Yeah.
so you can reduce the cost and make that work. So, okay, so we're talking like 10, $12,000 a year. You get a tax credit of 3,600 to 6,000, depending if it's infant or not. So you're looking at a 35% reduction in cost and taxation to in order to or 35. Well, that's a significant amount. And then on the flip side, if you have somebody that's paying 60, 50, $60,000, they're going to have to make at least 75 or 80 in order to just to afford that 50, 60 with taxes. Um,
And not be able to pay for anything else.
yeah, no, you're gonna have to make a couple $100,000 a year to afford that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so
And
I
it becomes untenable very
yeah.
quickly. So that's where the solutions like June Care, which is our company, what we're really doing is we're looking at, how can we very quickly build supply of childcare resources that families can rely on, but that families can also trust. And that's the other really key thing with childcare. It's a little bit different than some of the other, gig platforms where you easily find people who will go do your shopping for you. It
Hmm.
trust still matters, but it matters a lot less. With childcare, it has to be someone who, you're gonna very much trust right away
Sure.
and feel good about leaving your children with. And so for us, we're tapping into the stay-at-home mom community, the millions
Hmm.
of stay-at-home moms all across the country, and seeing if we can leverage technology to make their care work that they're already doing available to the families who need it, which then creates additional income opportunities on both sides.
So what you're saying is you have a stay-at-home mom that might be watching over two or three kids or a couple kids, and they're open to doing that childcare for additional one
Exactly.
or two, so they can handle that. And it's a trusted person because they're already taking care of their own kids. And so how does you care go about selecting people and how does that whole service work? And well, let's start with how the service works and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, so you can think about it almost like an Uber for childcare or an Airbnb for childcare. It is totally opt-in. So our providers, they are moms. They're typically stay-at-home moms caring for their kids during the day, and they raise their hand and they say, "I'm available to help." For me as a mom of three, I actually love having other kids over. I find it makes my day more interesting and entertains my children, and everybody's happier. And I think
Entertains
a
the
lot of
children.
exactly. A lot of parents like that. It also makes me a better mom, because I now feel responsible for creating better experiences for these other kids. But so they create full profiles just with pictures, videos explaining more about themselves. We do full background checks. We do reference checks. We also often will do live interviews with our providers just to make sure it's really a trusted childcare resource for the community. And then their profile is available online. Families can sign up for free. We have a smart matching algorithm, which can match you based on your preferences, the age and gender of your kids, or you can browse providers who look like a good fit for you. And then everything happens on the app. So you're booking childcare, you pay for your childcare on the app, you schedule your childcare. It's very flexible, which is something
Mhm.
that parents need today. The rates are listed on the profile, so you can see how much a June Care provider costs and decide what works for your budget. And we're seeing what's really cool about it in relation to the Surgeon General warning is it's using technology to help people connect, but then translating those connections into real world interactions for parents and for kids. So we're seeing real relationships, real friendships form on the backs of these June Care childcare need connections, which we hope will help reverse some of these numbers in addition to all the other efforts happening in the public and private sector.
You know what? I can understand that because some people will opt to have childcare, but there might not be that comfortable. It's just that the only source available type situation. And again, they're probably overpaying for it and frustrated about it at the same time. So um, one of the questions I have is when it comes to cost, obviously one of the financial stressors is cost. Is the cost using your service less than a traditional place or approximately, I mean, obviously different markets are different, but what's the approximate savings that somebody should realize?
Yeah. It depends obviously on where you live. So we started in California, but we are now nationwide. So we do see pretty differentiated prices across different states. We are higher quality in terms of provider to child ratio, as well as experience of the childcare provider, in this case, the mom, than your traditional mainstream daycare. So we are more expensive than daycares right now. We are about 50% of the cost of an in-home nanny or babysitter who you may bring into your home. However, again, we're just at the beginning stages of this, and we strongly believe that as we're able to build more supply, we are going to see prices normalize like we do in any marketplace, so that this becomes a more and more accessible solution to the families who need it.
Okay, so a couple things that I heard was one, um, yes, when you say high quality, most daycares have 10, 20 kids there in a home. Your kids, maybe one or two might be with two or three others, and
Mhm.
that's it.
Yeah.
And it's 5 to 1 or five to one as opposed to 20 to one.
Yep.
So you have different care and it's at a higher level.
Mhm.
And okay, so that's actually pretty exciting.
It's really high value care, I think is the way to think about it. We only match families one to one on the platform. So as a provider, I can only watch children from one other family at a time. And
Mhm.
that's really, to maintain our safety standards, but also to maintain our quality standards so that those children who are being dropped off or watched by that other mom can get that stay-at-home mom experience, even if their own mom during the day may be, in an office or, at her studio or, whatever she needs to do to go out and earn an income herself.
Okay, and no, I get that. I just wanted to make sure people are clear. So, for example, some people are going to a stay-at-home mom, but that stay-at-home mom might have three kids, but they also watch five others or six others or seven others. But we here you're going to see a lower volume,
Yeah. Lower
and
ratio. Hmm.
yeah, and the concern is hey, we've got this mom that's watching everybody, but she's watching all these kids, and sometimes my kid doesn't eat everything they should. So, all those things, the concerns, the issues that they have with that type of care. So it's just a different level of care. So that's actually great to know. It's so wild when you say Uber app.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's we've been around for about 3 years, and definitely when we first started, I did get a lot of questions around, gosh, will moms really drop their children off at a stranger's house, you know? And I think over time, I always felt comfortable with it because I understood our vetting process for our providers. And so I knew these quote unquote strangers, they were not strangers to us. And then as we've scaled and really increased our safety standards and our safety practices and our brand of trust, we are seeing parents really lean into this model and really enjoy it, not just for the basic need of childcare that they can access, but also the communities that are being formed because now people are actually meeting other people in real life and getting that social interaction.
That's perfect. Hey, folks, stick with us. We're going to be right back with more Shaving with Steve. Perfect. Oh,
Okay, I gotta get my dog out of here.
oh, that's okay.
Sorry. Well, I know. I don't want her to bark. Hold
Oh,
on.
okay. Well, I've had everything from somebody's cat during COVID walk across the screen.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yep, I had somebody's dog lick the camera one time, and you're like, okay. But the funny thing is, people like it became like a meme or something that people would like watch again and like you couldn't believe what just happened on this. It was like,
Funny.
okay,
I know.
okay,
Oh God.
yeah, okay, Cameron, we're
Carol's
gonna.
working from home.
Oh, I'm good with it all. Cameron, we're going to move into segment four. Just so you know, this probably won't be all 10 minutes. It'll probably be three or four because basically what I'm going to do is ask you, how can people get connected with you? How can people, where do they go? All that kind of stuff, because you've already answered everything else in a little shorter period of time. So we'll use other things to fill the balance. So Here we go. Uh, um, Cameron, we're moving into segment 4 with Gretchen Salyer. Again, this is probably going to be a 3-minute or so portion, and then I'm going to make up the rest with the latter two. So here we go. Gretchen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. Right now, we've talked about the report, what people are dealing with, what the solutions are, what the government will provide in tax credits. The next thing I'd like to talk about is your service is nationwide. childcare is nationwide. So you're matching up people with a high level of care because they're caring for less people as opposed to a whole volume so that people get better care. How can people get a hold of you at childcare? I mean, maybe not you personally, but how do they get a hold of the app? How can they, if moms have questions and want to just talk to somebody, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, we actually are a pretty small company. So if you email support, it goes to my head of customer success and she can easily get your message to me. So I'm always happy to speak with anyone who just has questions about childcare in general, or of course, questions about June Care and how it works. June, by the way, stands for Joining Up Neighbors Everywhere. So a big part of our mission is moms supporting moms in their most important work, whether that work is outside the home and they need childcare or inside the home, giving them an opportunity to get paid for that very hard but important work that they're doing every day with their own kids. So you can find June Care. It's junecare.co. We have an app on the Apple App Store. Android app will be coming soon, I promise. Some of my teammates have Androids and they're very annoyed that we don't have that yet. But it's free to sign up. So whether you're interested in providing care and earning some extra income while you're home with your kids, really encourage you to sign up, create a profile, and start to get matched with families near you. It's an awesome opportunity, even if you can only do it sometimes, to connect with your neighbors and make new friends for your kids as well. And if you're looking for childcare, again, free to sign up. You can sign up as one of our families. That's what we call the demand side of our marketplace. You can post a request and get applicants, or you can reach out to specific providers if you see a profile or a family that looks like a great match for you.
So if somebody's looking to become a provider of care, what are the type of things that when they come to your website, they're going to need to, provide? What type of information are they going to need to provide in order to have them been vetted and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so we have it's a pretty streamlined onboarding process for our providers, but you'll tell us about yourself, your kids. We also do ask questions around your parenting style because we do some matching just to make sure we're finding families that are simpatico with each other, like-minded families we talk about. We ask about vaccination status. That's really important if you have an infant to some families. And then we ask a lot about your home. So we need to know, do you have a pool? If you have a pool, does it have a fence that's at least 6 feet with a lock? There's just certain things we need to know. We often will ask for photo evidence of if there's any safety hazards or potential safety hazards around your property. Also, just so you can share with the families who are looking to potentially book you online. And then we ask for 2 references. We do call those references and they cannot be related to you. So someone who is not related to you but has seen you with your kids, we just want to talk to them and understand what their experience has been. And then we do run a full background check as well, which kind of covers all the bases from local to national.
Okay, then on the flip side, for moms and dads that are looking for somebody to care, what are the questions should they be asking?
Yeah, so we have some resources on our website which give you interview guides and just things you should be thinking about if you're looking for childcare. At the highest level, first is a good idea to have a conversation or some self-reflection if you're a single parent about what's truly most important to you. So we have a saying, there's no Mary Poppins. If you find her, good for you, but typically she doesn't actually exist. So there's going to be some things that you're going to compromise on, but there should definitely be things that you are not willing to compromise on. And so really aligning on what those are and focusing your search based on that, whether that's screen time, whether that's, a vegetarian diet, whatever it may be, you can put all of those preferences in to make sure that you're finding the best match for you. And then once you've actually matched with one or two providers who you're interviewing, you really just want to ask them about themselves. What is their parenting style? How do they, we always find these scenario questions are helpful. So, if you're at the park and your child is on the slide, but my child is climbing the high tower, what do you do? Things that really could come up as a parent or as a provider watching multiple kids. And just make sure whatever their response is, it aligns with what you would respond to as well. Or maybe it's even better. Maybe you learn something through those questions. But then also just making sure, your kids are interacting well with a provider. You want to see a provider who gets down and interacts with your kids, makes them feel comfortable. We don't find that to be a huge problem with our particular providers because they often have kids themselves. So they're very used to that sort of thing. And that's their expectation as well. And then also that you have good communication. You want to make sure while you're at work or while you're not with your kids, what kind of updates do you want? Do you kind of just not want to know? Do you want hour by hour updates? Just getting on the same page, I think, is the most important thing. So the problems arise really when expectations don't meet reality. And so you just want to be really clear about your expectations.
That was wonderful because one of the big questions we got from our listeners was, I don't know what questions to ask. So on both sides of that, thank you so much because
Yeah, and there's
I,
resources on our website too if your families
Mhm.
want to check it out.
Well, the big thing there is I'm thinking of the people who wrote in and I can see just the stress level going, okay, now I know what to ask. So
Yeah,
Gretchen, I want to thank you so very, very much. Could you just let everybody know what website or where they can go to get your app again? And
yeah.
then I'm going to thank you for being here. It's just been wonderful.
Yeah, Steve, thanks so much for doing this. I'm really impressed with what you've built. And I think it's such a service to give families and your listeners insight, into all of these different financial issues. So really honored to be a part of it. You can find JuneCare at junecare.co and then also on the Apple App Store. If you just search JuneCare and look for the childcare app, our our logo is a rainbow. You'll find us there.
Cool. Hey, everybody, this is Gretchen Salyer. She's the CEO and founder of June Care. Gretchen, thank you so much again for being with us. Folks, stick with us. We're going to be right back with some more Saving with Steve. Hey, again, folks, thank you for tuning in here. I appreciate you sharing this with your friends and family and associates. You know what? We have a tremendous amount of new listeners, and we just appreciate you for that. Again, all the replays are available at www.savingwithsteve.us. If you're enjoying the stories of helpful information, insight on Saving with Steve, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a show and check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, E360 TV, Las Vegas TV Network. All these networks are dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirit, and live a life of personal financial freedom. Also, following us on Facebook, join us at the Saving with Steve Sexton Insiders Club. You can get all the replays, guest gifts, the whole access to everything, videos, the whole thing at the next level. Now, what I'd really like to talk to you now is about some of the things that are occurring. And I just need to find my notes real quick here. And that you really need to be aware of this. See, and I'd love for you to share this with friends, family, people who are a little bit older, because this is happening. They're scamming people in the tunes of billions. And you know what? The Better Business Bureau, they tallied over 4,000 reports of significant loss, and those losses have significantly increased on average from $1,000 to $6,000 a year in here in 2024. And scams are linked to crypto, romance scams, and you know what? Basically, here's how it works. See, investment scammers, they target victims throughout North America, eyeing targets with existing investments and retirement accounts. So that means they're targeting people over the age of 60. They use these dense and sometimes misunderstood world of cryptocurrency to evade suspicion and lure in victims. These scammers, they can go for months at a time before being detected, allowing scammers to steal thousands of dollars before anybody figures it out. These scams largely originate in Southeast Asia, India, due to organized crime, but our growing response to fraud, the reason has led to fraudsters to move their scams to operations in other countries. And many low-level scammers are victims of forced labor. You know what? It's pretty complicated there. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening. And I'm just going to tell you about something that happened with somebody that I know that decided to have a conversation with me. And I had done these reports for local and national news before. So let's talk about this. This person um, came to me this one day and said, Steve, you know what? I'm thinking about investing in cryptocurrency. I said, really? How did that come about? And he says, well, the girl I have been dating has a uncle that is a cryptocurrency guru, and he works on Wall Street. And they could double my money in 6 months in cryptocurrency. And you know what? We've been talking for a while, and they've been talking for like 6 months online. Okay. Never met her, seen her face and everything, talking online and all that kind of stuff. And she said, you know what? And they were talking about investments one time. She let it go, talked about investment again another time. Here we are 6 months later. He says, you know, I talked to my uncle, okay? And he said that he'd be open to helping you if you wanted, okay? And you know what? He only, you know, but you have to use like $50,000. And he says, oh, that wouldn't be a problem if I can double my money in 6 months. I would invest 100,000. And he came to me asking, hey, Steve, I'm looking to do this. And I said, who have you talked to about this? You know what? Doing this $100,000. And he says, no, I haven't talked to anybody. I go, hey, your sister is a financial advisor like what we do. Have you talked to her? She goes, no, no, no. I haven't talked to her because she would say it's a bad thing to do. And I said, well, have you checked out this supposed cryptocurrency guru? Okay. I said, do you know the person's address? If he's doing these things, he's got to be regulated by Wall Street, especially if he's on Wall Street. So find out his SEC license number. Find out where he's located. Verify that he's very located. Because I told him, I said, this sounds like a Ponzi scheme, and I've reported on these. And basically, it's a slow play program where somebody creates a relationship with you over a period of time. And they slowly but surely get you comfortable with them. And they talk about coming visit you guys doing stuff together and all that. But it's over a period of time. And there's always an excuse why they can't come. But you can make a bunch of money. And here's what happened. When he went to check on the address, it was a building. It's, on Wall Street. But I said, what office? What floor? Can you verify that there's an address for somebody like him at that office at that floor? Does he have an SEC number? When he talked to him, it turns out he doesn't have an SEC number. Oh, wow. You're selling securities in the United States and you don't have an SEC number? Wow. Are you selling something unlicensed? And then I said, why don't you share this information with this person you've been dating? Let her know that you went and checked things out and found out that your uncle doesn't have an SEC number and he actually lives in Asia. But he has an office on Wall Street, but you can't verify any office on Wall Street. And you know what? She says, I'm sorry, I can't really talk now. I'll have to get back to you. And she never called again. Folks, this happens time and time again. Many years ago, I had one client that we actually told her it was a romance scam and that she needed to get out of it. And she said, no, no, no. And she took out almost $400,000 of her IRA. She was so embarrassed that, you know what? She didn't report anything to the government or the police or anything like that. And you know what? Here's what happened. She filed her tax return and they told her she's going to owe almost $100,000 in taxes. And then she filed the report. Folks, don't let this happen to you. Don't let it happen to somebody you love. Okay. Here's some tips. Be very wary of the buzzwords. Certain phrases should raise red flags for investment opportunities. Don't believe anything that is guaranteed to do well or that offers no or low risk rate of return unless you can see all the prospectus documents. The investment industry is highly regulated, so be wary if investments are unregistered with the SEC or other investment industry. Really, also check licenses by sellers. High pressure sales tactics are a big warning. Okay. You don't want to have high pressure. And the other question is, how do you make money? If you find the rewards for recruiting new distributors and selling those products and training materials is more than the reward for selling products, you may be dealing with a pyramid scheme. So folks, check this out for yourself. Make sure this doesn't happen to you. I want to thank you all for joining us today here on Saving with Steve. I appreciate you sharing it with your friends and family. Again, check us out. Check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio, AM FM 247. Look forward to seeing you next time. Stay safe and stay healthy, and you have a nice day. Bye-bye.